It's a beautiful baking day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to be covering the next part in our recommended cookie toppings. Now, this took a lot of work trying to figure it out for pumpkin pie and chili pepper, but I think you guys will appreciate what comes out of this. I did cover most of this with pumpkin pie already in the peanut topping one, but I'm going to go into more detail about how this works and what you can do with pumpkin pie at her best. So there's 3 different sets of toppings that are going to work pretty good with pumpkin pie. All of them have to do with health, defense, and resistance. So the first one is, of course, the solid almonds, which is pretty meta. This is because the longer she survives, the more that she can summon out the companion to do the attacking and the damage against the other opponents. Whereas if she doesn't survive very long and she just makes a really strong attacker, then you have to hope that that attacker can do enough damage to where it was a meaningful summon, because her skill allows her to get her attack off so fast that that teammate, that 6th teammate of the pom-pom, is coming onto the field no matter what. So because of that, you need to think, do you want a pom-pom that's going to survive, or do you want one that's going to be an all-out DPS? And I can explain that further with the skill here. So if you look down here, pom-pom summons with 77.8% of the attack of pumpkin pie, 188% of the defense, and 382% of the HP. But the summon time does have a duration. So that means you can't just summon pom-pom and it's there forever. You have to consider that. I haven't written down the time. I should get that data if I can soon. It's a hard one to collect because I'm not sure what the time summon is based on, since it doesn't say in the skill how long pom-pom is out. My guess would be 18 seconds, since that's the base cooldown, so I would think that, but it could be something different. But here's what's important. With 77.8% attack, that means you are not getting 100% of that 44,000 attack. But pumpkin pie has a very high base attack. So, if you can increase her attack, you can get a 3/4 percentage of that attack. So, like, for instance, let's just round this up to 45,000. We would be able to get about 37,000 attack power on pom-pom when summoned, which is pretty good, but it's only hitting against the front defenders. So that's not going to be enough to really be taking those front lines out right away, unless that's your specific build. If you're really going for that front line takeout strategy, then yeah, you could do that. I don't really think that that's the most optimized way to use pom-pom and pumpkin pie. Instead, I think it's more the survivability and the resistance. So if we look at the skill again, 188% of defense. Base defense, if we just take all toppings off, 30,000. So that is almost 60,000 defense, which is pretty good. That's a pretty healthy amount of resistance against the lower end attacks. And if we go full walnut strategy, 40,000, which means at that point you're almost at 80,000 defense, which yet again, pretty good. But things like Frost Queen, Sea Fairy, Eclair, they're going to be able to out damage that defense, so it won't be enough. It won't be a big enough amount for pom-pom to guaranteed survive in that frontline attack. At least not for the full duration of the summon time. So instead, my personal recommendation is peanut toppings for pom-pom, but a good substat focus on defense and damage resistance. So what would that look like? If you put 5, let's just say perfect peanut toppings on pumpkin pie, you would have a maximum of 70% HP, 15% defense, and 30% damage resistance. And that's because if you look here, you can get as high as 6% damage resistance as a substat, and 3% for defense, and 3% for HP. And so you would, at that point, nearly have a starting HP of 140,000. More realistically, like 128,000 HP with that perfected topping stat. And this is also taking into factor lab upgrades, bonds, and any other buffs and perks you have in the game, of course. But let's round down. Let's say 120,000. At 120,000, that would make Pom Pom come out with 382% of that, which means you would have, let's just round up a little bit here and say 4 times. So 4 times 120,000 is over 600,000 HP. That means that with the defense, because it's going to get that defense, and with that attack, it's going to also give the just your overall health pool and resistance for Pom Pom is going to be pretty strong. So couple that with Pom Pom's strike attack damage of 170%, you're bringing out a beast, like an absolute tanking beast that can pretty much defend against most of the generic attacks from the other cookies. And so I've personally used peanut toppings on pumpkin pie before. I have moved them, though, you can see, because you're probably like, well, where do you have them now? Currently, I have them testing on Hollyberry. So I'm running them on Hollyberry because Hollyberry has a very high health pool, but I have run them on pumpkin pie quite a lot. And it's done really good. I almost completely switched, but I don't have perfected toppings. And I can actually show you that right here. See, there's no HP defense or damage resistance here. No HP defense or damage resistance. No HP. There's some damage and defense right there. So I've got like 1 out of the 5 of them that have like all the stats I need. So that's the hard part, is building up those toppings to where you can get enough that have the stats and substats that you need. If I had those to be putting on pumpkin pie, yeah, I would be on peanut toppings for her all day, because that Pom Pom comes out so quickly. You've just got another huge body that's just hit the field, and it's bigger percentages than pumpkin pie is, except the attack. The attack is the only thing that is a slightly smaller amount, but then that strike distance, this Pom Pom strike attack, that makes up for the attack as well. So super formidable cookie. A lot of people definitely like pumpkin pie for a lot of reasons. I think it can be more broken with really good peanut toppings on top of her. And so that's my personal recommendations. As far as substats you can go for some cooldown if you want, or some attack speed. That's going to help with the second or maybe third summon of Pom Pom. It does depend on your team build, if that's what you're going for. But if you're going for a hard striking team out the get-go, you can kind of focus mostly on just the attacking and defensive power of Pom Pom itself. We're going to go ahead and move on to Chili Pepper. Chili Pepper's a little complex. So I've been testing what works and what doesn't work. And the main 3 things that need to be on Chili Pepper is cooldown, attack speed, and attack. You can try and build her in a sense of high HP because she has a really high base HP. You can try and build her as a good defender because she also has a good base defense. But in the grand scheme of things, her skill is super quick. She's got a 12-second skill. And even though her single hit damage is 79% at level 60 with level 60 skill, she does 4 strikes. And the last one is always critical. And right now with the new critical monuments, that means you're going to be doing extra damage. So that means that you're going to be doing a little over 320% of your attack damage. So in this instance, that would be about 100k damage with her current base attack. Now, if you pumped her attack and let's say we just add all searing. Obviously, we don't really have good leveled ones, but we'll just add to showcase like the potential power. Now the attack's 45,000. So now you're doing almost 150,000 damage to the rear enemies. And what's also important is those strikes, so if you read it, sneaks behind enemies, causing area damage. So this will be to the 2 rear enemies, if there is 2 rears, with 4 strikes. The final strike always deals critical damage. Now, they, I believe, updated her wording, because at one time it did say that it left them immobilized, because I have old skills written down from previous updates. So let me look. So chili pepper. Okay, no, nothing about immobilization. So the strikes, though, what they're doing is they're basically taking out healers. Pure vanilla, eclair, cotton, parfait, mint, anything that you think is a key opponent to the enemy's team, you can get her cooldown. If you go full chocolate toppings instead of attack toppings, you could get chili pepper all the way down to a 3-second cooldown. But the good thing is, because her skill is so fast, you only need a 3.4% cooldown for her to have an initial starting 3-second cooldown. After that, if you did 3.4% cooldown, she would then do her next skill at 8.6 seconds. And then, so the lowest you could get her down to is 6 seconds, 6.3, sorry, for a secondary hit. Which within the first 9 seconds, doing almost 400,000 damage to the rear enemies, that's pretty good. But I think if you focus more on attack and attack speed, that you'll probably still have the advantage of power overall, especially since that last hit is critical, and you can deal a lot of damage with certain criticals. So I did test with critical toppings, and it had some interesting results. I was able to get it to where criticals were happening each second, but it wasn't making enough of a difference, mostly because these are under-leveled toppings, but also because the attack power on her is just not high enough for the criticals to be strong enough to start, where other cookies it's more beneficial. And so I think it's a kind of a pass between searing and chocolate toppings. If you want to go the chocolate topping route, make sure you have a maximum 15% attack substat and also a 15% attack speed substat, because she'll always get the guaranteed critical. So you really want to focus on how fast and how hard she hits. And the cooldown will give you that better chance to hit it again, as long as she survives. But she has a really high base health. I mean, if you just compare her to like other cookies, like let's look at, I don't even know. Let's look at not Lilac, Kumio, higher HP, Rye, lower HP, Herb, lower, Milk, higher, Sparkling, lower, Moon Rabbit, much higher. So it's not a horrible base HP. Obviously, it could be bigger. She's probably still squishy in that sense, but because the overall power that the speed that she has from her quick attack from the skill cooldown, that's what really keeps her in the forefront of how she does so well in the backline. If you're not focused on the backline, maybe you just want to take out those front defenders, Sorbet is obviously going to be a better choice because that hits the front. But if you want the mid fight, like you want to take out the middle row, maybe then you instead go for Black Raisin, or you go for probably Vampire. Yeah, probably Vampire in that instance. But if you want that backline taking out, Chili Pepper's going to be able to help with that, help handle that. So if you guys have any opinions or anything you guys want to add, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thanks so much for stopping by for this video. We'll definitely keep covering more of the recommended toppings for each of these cookies. We should be getting to almond and cream puff next. Hope you all have a wonderful day.